every company is a media company and every company is a loyalty company. And in the field of loyalty, NFTs are an absolutely transformative technology. They allow you to bypass centralized platforms, the algorithms and the whims of giant social media behemoths, and they give you a way of directly reaching and sharing in the value that you create with your fans.
Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Matt Medved. If you don't know who Matt is, he is the co-founder of NFT Now, a Web3 media company. Their NFT is called the Now Pass, which I am a holder of. And Matt is also the host of the NFT Now podcast. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Excited for this conversation.
Super excited to have you. Today, Matt and I are going to explore media and how Web3 will transform content. And before we get into that, Matt, I want to hear your backstory. Start wherever you want to start. How'd you get into media? And then ultimately, how'd you get into NFTs?
Oh, man, what a story, right? So, come from 15 years in music and media prior to the Web3 space, and so I actually have a whole past life working in nonprofits and NGOs as well. And I was actually finishing up the graduate programs related to that. And in 2013, I was living in Milan doing an exchange at Bocconi, and I stumbled across this thing called Bitcoin on Reddit, and that kind of ended up being a lot of like career foreshadowing for me. I remember buying the exact top of that market, like I was the top signal, and it crashed like 2 weeks later, but I held on to it. And
how much was the top signal back then? Are you talking 20,000 or was it?
No, $900.
Oh my gosh, what a bargain!
I know. It's like I would kill to be the top signal again, right? But it was interesting because I just thought it was a really interesting technology, and believed in the Bitcoin white paper. And when I look back on it, it was all kind of foreshadowing for what was to come. And so after that, I actually had the opportunity to start writing for Billboard. And so I was living in Berlin, and I was basically leading all of the dance electronic music coverage at Billboard. Realized that this music was about to take over America. Came back, got the degrees in the mail, ended up joining Billboard full time, and founded Billboard Dance in 2015. And what was interesting was the next bull run kind of coincided with the peak years at Billboard Dance from 2016 to 2018, where I realized I was the only person at Billboard who A, owned crypto, or B, understood it at all. And so started really being really interested in the intersection of music and blockchain, and being friends with all the DJs, guys like Blau, RAC, etc. Realized that there was something really exciting happening in that space. And so ended up, advising for one of Blau's projects, did a bunch of panels, South by Southwest with RAC, spoke at Consensus Ethereal. At that point, we were all just trying to figure out, how can this technology empower creators? And as it turns out, I think NFTs were kind of that missing puzzle piece. And so after that period, I actually took over Spin Magazine, ran Spin Magazine as editor-in-chief from 2018 to 2020, and exited with the sale of that. And then was actually running content at Modern Luxury, the lifestyle publisher, when my good friend Blau pulled me down the NFT rabbit hole in 2020. And it was like every light bulb went off in my head. I was like, this is it. Finally, this is the technology I believed in for a very long time. Finally disrupting fields I'm actually passionate about, because I'm not a finance guy at the end of the day. Art, music, culture, that's what I care about. And in a way that had the power to empower creators. And I was like, this is all I care about now. You know what I mean? But what was interesting, man, was unlike 2013, when I felt really passionate about something with Bitcoin, and I had the Bitcoin white paper that I could send to everyone. I sent it to all my friends, all of that. Most of them didn't listen to me, But when I was getting into NFTs, there wasn't really a source of truth. I was looking for that source of truth. I was like, where's the independent, credible, outlet, covering this and all that, and being really authoritative. And what I saw was a really fragmented landscape. a lot of platforms with megaphones promoting their own drops, and a lot of like talking heads on Twitter shilling their own bags. And I was like, where's the billboard of Web3? It wasn't called Web3 then. Where's the billboard of NFTs and all that? Where's the complex? Where's like the intersection of like authoritative news features coverage and also a finger on the pulse of the culture? Didn't see it. So that's why we started it. And so started the NFT Now accounts in January of 2021. They started taking off. We formally founded the company in shortly thereafter, and we all made the full-time jump with my co-founder Alejandro in June. And the rest is history. It's been an amazing journey, and the mission from day one has always been empower the creators of culture and bring this technology from niche to mainstream. And it's never wavered. It's only evolved from there.
As a fellow media guy, I have a lot of respect for media people that, leave traditional media and strike out on their own. I don't have that traditional media background. I just started from scratch and figured it out as I went along. When you started NFT Now in early 2021, that was kind of just the beginning of like the end almost, wasn't it? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but that was like 2021 was when there were some really big collections that launched, right? And then all of a sudden by the end of 2021, things had changed a little bit. But I'm just curious, like from your perspective, as a publisher of content, like was it easy to do it in 2020, in early 2021, because the wave was still going up and it wasn't going to be until later in 2021 that things started kind of teetering? I'm just curious, was the marketplace receptive to you guys? Because obviously prior to this, you got a lot of independent YouTubers out there just kind of creating content, right?
Yeah, so when we started in January 2021, it was actually really before the boom, because
Oh, was it? Okay.
yeah, because Beeple was in March of 2021.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
Beat Friends and Bored Ape and all that came out later, right?
exactly. So one of those things is really interesting. I always say in Web3, weeks are months and months are years.
Right.
And so even by virtue of being there for, a few months before this went really parabolic, with that Beeple sale and the like, it was enough time to really get to know the community, build relationships with the top collectors, with the top artists, with like the top builders in the space. And it's funny because like I remember, even during the subsequent bull run, there were a lot of people who would be like, "Oh, NFT Now, you guys are OGs," and I'd be like, "Well, like I've been in crypto for a while, but like NFT Now
I
hasn't
had the
necessarily,
exact same thing happen when I started
you
Social
know."
Media Examiner, just months into it as social media was popping in 09. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I know you. You've been around forever.
Right. And it's like, yes and no. It's like, you're not wrong, because in this space, that is actually really significant. But, it's funny, like that people remember who was there before the noise. And I think that's really important. And that was a big part of building our credibility. And the other thing too, is like, we really hit the ground running. Like, March is when, March is when we sort of like really put it into high gear. We launched the NFT Now podcast in April of 2021. The newsletter, and then later that year, it was in September when we launched the website, and then we did the first gateway, our first flagship event at Miami Basel with Christie's that December, and that was pretty wild because that was a 6-month-old startup partnering with a 275-year-old auction house, and so, but it was like that I think was indicative of like the just being ahead of the curve and planting that flag and building there. And you are right. There's one thing that's really interesting is that like that was another thing. There were a lot of individual creators out there covering NFTs and Web3 and the like, but like I think we really set ourselves apart by being like a trustworthy, credible, but also like new and exciting brand that also had the finger on the pulse. I think one of the biggest things with NFT Now is like we've always tried to be the signal in the noise. And during that bull market, there was a lot of noise. You know what I mean? Like I even think,
100%.
dude, I think back on it, man. We really held true to our ethics policy, to our moral code, et cetera. Like there were a lot of people trying to throw money at us. especially from very questionable projects. There was some PFP project that literally offered us 250K for one tweet, and we said no. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
we turned down probably high seven figures in potential revenue during the bull run, but that would have come at the cost of our reputation. That would have come at the cost of our credibility. That would have come at the cost of our authenticity, and that is all priceless. Like, you know what I mean? You can't build that back once you lose it. And so we felt also we had a responsibility to do right by our community and our audience, and make sure that like we were only putting projects in front of them that were legitimate, and that we were, making sure to be super transparent and ethical about everything, because there were so many others out there who were just prioritizing short-term revenue over long-term trust, and most of them aren't around anymore, and some of them may even face legal action. So
there's so many parallels between when I started Social Media Examiner almost 14 years ago. Back then, it was a lot of bloggers, because back then blogging was the platform. So you had a lot of bloggers who had opinions, right? And they weren't sharing all their wisdom. They were keeping it locked up so that people would have to pay them as consultants, to get that great information. And I remember starting an independent media company where I had lots of voices, right? And nobody was doing that. And that's kind of what you're doing here, right? Which is you're trying to create you have created, because of your background, a legitimate media company that can be trusted, because there's so much misinformation, like you said, out there, and so many multiple agendas. I can't even begin to tell you how many multi-million-dollar offers I had when I started Social Media Examiner within the first year, of people that just wanted to buy the business because nobody was doing what I was doing. And what I love about what you're doing is it just shows you that there is a need for media, for content, specifically in an emerging industry. We're going to get into this a lot more, but I do want to ask this question. From your perspective, now we're recording this in the summer of 2023. We can say that the industry has gone through multiple stages of maturity, right? It's still early days, but obviously things have changed a lot since you started in 2021. Why are NFTs still important for business from a business perspective today? Obviously, this is the Web3 business show. So that includes creators, that includes entrepreneurs, that includes marketers. What's your thoughts on why maybe NFTs are still important for business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that NFTs are an absolute game changer for brands that are looking to establish a direct connection with their most loyal, most engaged, and most hardcore fans and audience and community segment. And that's incredible. That's an incredibly powerful thing. One thing we have a saying at NFT Now, and that is every company is a media company and every company is a loyalty company. And in the field of loyalty, NFTs are an absolutely transformative technology. They allow you to bypass centralized platforms, the algorithms and the whims of giant social media behemoths, and they give you a way of directly reaching and sharing in the value that you create with your fans. And that's something that we've seen it play out across so many different use cases, and from memberships to loyalty rewards programs and the like. And I think big brands are starting to realize, one thing that was really interesting, like during the bull run, a lot of brands were like looking at NFTs as like a short-term, like revenue opportunity. I think what they've really realized is that this is a much more long-term loyalty and engagement opportunity and retention opportunity, which is the key. And so, like, if you think about it, like one thing that's really powerful is that Web3 NFTs, they create and enable digital ownership in a way that just was not possible before. That's so how I always make it, just like boil it down to the basics, get beyond the tech, all of that. They create a level of digital ownership that just was not possible before. And that digital ownership is quite powerful because it can help realign and change incentives in a way that can really create a ton of value for businesses. So, for example, it unlocks a different level of connection with your consumers. Back in Web 2, it was all about building audience, right? People built audience as a means to an end to monetize indirectly as a middleman for brands. That's the Web2 model, right? Whether that's, the brand partnership model for, individual creators, whether it's the programmatic ad model for media companies, et cetera. It was all about audience, right? But audience is really transactional and audience is really fleeting. And to be honest, like audience is built on really weak ties at the top of your funnel. Where Web3 finds its value is community, where this technology enables and empowers is in a sense of community. And how do I differentiate the two? To me, audience is aware that you exist. They may actually like buy your product. They may actually like follow you in the feed. They may even attend your events, things like that. But ultimately, it's a one-way street of exchange. Whereas in community, your community members, they want to see you win, because winning means winning together, because they actually have a share. They have a stake in seeing you win. Whether that's owning an NFT, whether that's being a part of your ecosystem, et cetera. And in a powerful way, they can actually share in that value that's being created. So that unlocks this different level of fandom. It unlocks this different level of consumer loyalty. It's the difference between being a passive follower and an engaged shareholder of sense. It's the difference between being like a supporter and an ambassador. And one thing that we've seen is that being able to directly reach those holders, being able to directly reward those holders, being able to verify authenticity directly on chain is incredibly powerful. And it's enabling this connection that previously wasn't possible before. And we're seeing it play out for big brands. We're seeing it play out for businesses. We're seeing it play out for individual creators across art, music, and different areas of culture. And it's the beginning of what I think will be the next chapter of the internet, which will be about ownership, not simply like renting the land upon which your digital identity is built.
Very awesome. Thinking about the kind of business that you're running, which is a media company, and your background working at various media companies, what was your thought of your business model when you started NFT Now back in early 2021? And then how has it evolved?
Yeah, great question. So from day one, we knew we wanted to do things differently when it comes to media. Coming from legacy media, I could see just like I'd seen firsthand just how broken the Web2 media model is. And, I really do think that a lot of it goes back to the rise of programmatic advertisement. So, one thing that you have to understand is that in Web2 digital media, like you are the product, right? Like you are like, your eyeballs are being monetized. They're being sold to, at scale. And what I think the way that we got there was with the rise of social media platforms, we saw this like crazy rise in traffic to digital publishers that had never happened before. The floodgates opened and publishers became addicted to that traffic. They started optimizing for that traffic. They started fitting and retooling and changing their content strategies around that traffic. And an entire cottage industry of like ad tech was built around maximizing this. And what happened there? What happened was it led to a prevalent lack of trust, right? Media companies found themselves locked in what I like to call this clickbait race to the bottom, where, algorithms reward sensationalist headlines, the quick trigger fingers, things like that. And the actual like quality of coverage declined. Also, like, as we've seen in recent studies, like public trust in media is at an all-time low. And this is, I think, a direct result of part of this as well. And, the algorithms created these echo chambers. There's a whole litany of things that went wrong there. But also, I think one thing that's really significant is that in the race to pursue scale at all cost, to fulfill this programmatic advertising media model, we also lost the sense of what really matters. Like there's no distinction made between audience quality and audience quantity, right? It was all about audience scale, not audience depth. And when everybody is reduced to one metric, which was traffic, you're painting with a very broad brush, and you end up, basically creating content intended to juice and like maximize that number versus actually serve or understand who those people are. Finally, invasions of privacy all over the place. And so look, like when we started NFT Now, we were aware of all these things and we knew we wanted to try doing something different. And so from day one, we have never had programmatic ads on NFT Now. From day one, we have never had pixels or cookies on NFT Now. We do not track our users like that. We believe in privacy and consent as fundamental human rights. And what's been amazing is even still, and we're an open book. Like, over the past 2 years, we've done 5.2 million, more than 5.2 million in top line revenue as a media company with no programmatic, which is pretty unheard of in the traditional industry, especially one as young as ours. And so the model there, when we started, was largely driven by partnerships. Obviously content partnerships. We said no for our first 9 months, as I said, to everyone who tried to throw money our way. And the first ones that we said yes to were Coinbase, United Masters. Like, that's the bar, that's the level that we set. We also have had really major tent poles and franchises and events that have driven sponsorship revenue, like the NFT 100, which is our flagship editorial franchise, recognizing 100 of the leading creators and community builders in the Web3 space. We do the gala in the Rainbow Room in New York. We've done that at the top of Rockefeller Center. We've done that 2 years running. The Gateway, which I'm repping today. The Gateway is our flagship event. As I mentioned, we did it for the first year in Miami, Basel. And then last year, we took it to another level. We did the Gateway of Web3 Metropolis. We took over 2 city blocks, 12 buildings over 5 days, turned the Miami historic DuPont Bank building into a massive audiovisual gallery. And we had partners like, in addition to a lot of the who's who of the Web3 space, like G Money's 9DCC, Artifact, Art Blocks, all that, Atom Bomb Squad, et cetera. We also had a bunch of legacy brands come in too. We had Porsche, we had Instagram, we had FaZe Clan, we had Christie's, MoonPay was our title sponsor. And so we've been able to really, drive some really amazing partnerships in that way. And at the top of this year was where we also developed our first proper Web3 native revenue stream, where we launched the Now Pass. The Now Pass is the access pass to the Now Network. And the Now Network is the foundation for all of our efforts to build the future of tokenized media and pioneer a community-centric media model, essentially pioneering the media model that we believe is the answer to this whole like broken Web2 media model that we've seen. And so with the Now Pass, we did, I believe it was 1.1 million in top line revenue. It sold out in less than 48 hours. And, and we've been using all of that to build out the Now Network and super serve that community. So, the business model has always been based on this fundamental mission of building a better media model. And, though that has evolved as the trajectory of the company has developed as well.
So what I'm hearing you say is events have been a big part of your, as they are a big part of Social Media Examiner as well. Our conference is coming up on 11 years. And then sponsored content, is that when you say partnerships, or is it like more like they're sponsoring the podcast? I'm curious how that works. Is it sponsored written content typically?
It's a bit of both. It's when we do our content partnerships, we always say like our mantra there is like transformational, not transactional. We don't do one-offs. Like you can't just pay for an article or buy a social post. Like, it doesn't work that way. We hold a very like high bar, and any partner that we want to work with, we attack it from all of our angles. That's one of the things that really sets us apart in the space, is we are an omni-channel media company. There are a lot of other media companies in Web3 that really just have like their bread and butter on one platform. We're across all of them, and we always leverage that. So like, good example is like, we recently partnered with Lacoste, and that was an amazing partnership. We had like an amazing feature that came out on editorial. We did a Twitter space on social. We ran stuff on Instagram, across Twitter, Threads as well, and so it's like we can attack it from all angles. There's been other times of partnerships where there's been a video angle, an original video, and the like. Some of them may include a podcast side, but one thing that's important to note is that whenever there's anything sponsored, we always clearly mark it as such. Any article will always say sponsor at the top. Any social post will also say #partner or have the in-paid partnership with. We really believe transparency and leading with integrity is the key to building the space.
The NFT project that you launched this year, right? Or was it last year? I can't remember. Was it this year? It was in 2023, right?
It was this year, although it feels like a year ago, right? Like,
yeah. So how given your experience, right? You're doing traditional things like events and sponsorship and NFTs. What's your viewpoint now that you've launched your own NFT? I'm just curious what your thoughts are as whether or not that is a more of a building community side of things or more of a fundraising side of things. I'm just curious what your view is on that.
It can be both. It can be both depending on what your aims are. For us, it was a bit of both. But I think that what was really driving it was super serving our community and kind of eating our own dog food. You know what I mean? Like putting into works all these ideas that we've had around how do we leverage value as create and capture value in a new way and share in that value with our community as a media brand in Web3. And so I think that one of the exciting things about it is it's putting ideas into action, and it's really doubling down on our most hardcore, loyal, engaged community members. A lot of people said it was like, why did you launch the Now Pass during a bear market? And we were like, because if we're gonna super serve a community, if I'm gonna show up every day and put my blood, sweat, and tears into serving a community, it had better be the real ones. It had better be the ones who believe in the vision for the future, who are rocking with us, who are showing up in the depths of the bear. We're not trying to super serve the moon boy, frothy speculator crew, right? That's not what this is about. This is about doubling down on the people who really believe in what we're building. And so that's been amazing. And that's why we made the community 2750. That's the 2750 supply. We purposely made it a more limited supply so that we could really super serve the community. We didn't want to dilute our efforts. We really wanted to be able to show up and develop it at a scale that where we could get to know everyone in the space, where we could really start to ensure that our efforts are being impactful. And so it's been an amazing journey, honestly. And it's been an illuminative journey too, and we're still only just getting started. I mean, one of the things that's really exciting is we never wanted the Now Pass to be just a normal kind of membership pass, and for us, it's that's why we wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. And that's why the artwork is fully generative, interactive, has a ton of different rarity traits and Easter eggs, which are all going to have significance, in the path forward. There's a whole lore that's being built around it. And we're building out right now the Now member portal, which is the kind of key gateway entrance point to the Now network, as we sort of build out all of these tools and functionalities to really help our different community segments succeed in Web3. And one thing we recognize is that success in Web3 is not a one size fits all, right? It means different things to different people. And we've done a really good job of surveying our community and understanding okay, we have a lot of creators in our community. What does success look like to them? Maybe that's getting linked up with a major auction house. Maybe it's getting an opportunity on a platform. Maybe it's getting in our next up, series. We have a lot of builders in the space, a lot of founders. What's that mean? Oh, maybe that's getting opportunities to speak at the gateway. Maybe that's getting connected with big brands in the space that we have in our network, right? One of the things we always say, we also have a lot of representatives from big brands, the Web3 person at each of these places, right? And for them, it's cool. How do I figure out how to connect the dots to create value for my employer or the company I founded and the like? So success means different things, but one of the things that we've always been really clear on, and it's kind of a mantra for us with the Now network, is that we believe that media companies shouldn't serve you advertisements; they should serve you opportunities. And if you think about the incredible community of holders and of relationships that we have after spending 2 years building trust and credibility and showing up every day in the space, we have a lot to work with, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff in the works too. So I'm
want
very.
to ask you about that because I think my next question is in alignment with where you're going with this, which is the concept of tokenized media and tokenized content. Maybe that's what you're building, but maybe you can discuss what it is exactly and where you see it all going.
Yeah. So I think there's two buckets to tokenized media. The first one is the actual tokenization of media. So that's articles, podcasts, videos, images, etc., living on the blockchain. This is incredibly important. This is something that we've been talking about the importance of this for a long time. And it wasn't until kind of the rise of AI that I think it started to really click for people. Ever since those, viral AI photos of Trump getting arrested went, like fooled a ton of people. And after, the AI photograph of the explosion at the Pentagon knocked, I think 500 million off the S&P 500. People are finally taking this seriously. I was just out at Cannes for Cannes Lions, and all the media execs are like, what are we going to do about AI disinformation? And I was like, guess what? Tokenized media fixes this, because one of the things that we have there is verifiable authenticity. We have on-chain provenance to track each step in the journey of a piece of content. Where did this come from? Where did this originate from? What's been that journey? What like, is it from a trusted source, etc.? That's going to be incredibly important as we move forward, and we're building some really interesting things in that space. So that's one level. Like, tokenized media to me is going to be the next frontier for media and for storytelling. One thing we've always said is technology has always driven storytelling forward, from the Gutenberg printing press, which brought the written word, to the masses, to the rise of the internet, and obviously media companies who embraced web at that time. They were the ones who survived and thrived. Then the rise of mobile with smartphones, the ones that adapted to mobile more quickly survived and thrived. Now tokenized media is the next frontier. Right. And then what's really exciting about this new frontier and this technology is not only is it going to change how stories are told and also consumed, but it has the potential to actually change a lot of the underlying relationships at play in really significant, meaningful ways. And that's where we get into the other bucket of tokenized media, which is the tokenization of communities around media. And that is where, like, the Now Network is like our case study and our sandbox, and all of our efforts going into building that future of tokenized media. Because what we really believe is everything I just spoke about with audience and community, applying that to a media model where you empower your community to have a say in co-creating the content, where they have a say in what gets covered, to and can have an actual voice around the table, where they actually have an incentive to share NFT Now content, read NFT, consume NFT Now content, contribute to NFT Now. One of the things that we saw with all of the issues that I spoke to about Web2 media is that consumers largely became loyal to the headline, not the brand. Media companies became homogenous and honestly like interchangeable, because they are all chasing the same algorithms with the same, for the same rewards, the same traffic rewards, and they're all playing the same game. And ultimately, it's like nothing really distinguished it, and no one really had a stake or a loyalty in being like, that's the one I gravitate towards, with few exceptions. And so what's amazing is with the Now Network, we actually can directly reward our community for sharing in the value that's being created. So, you'll be able to earn XP points, internal XP points in the Now Network in exchange for, contributing to our content series, to voting in some of those. Like, for example, we're going to be transitioning Next Up, which is our rising artist franchise, into a TCR, a token curated registry with on-chain voting, where Now Pass holders can be able to submit like artists that they think should be recognized and actually do like voting there, and they'll actually be rewarded for doing so. So we've suddenly realigned incentives where they actually have a real incentive to contribute and to put their energy in. Same for sharing, for consuming, for contributing to NFT Now. And then those XP points will be able to be exchanged for rewards based on all of our relationships and all of our partnerships in the space. We're really thinking about this from like a loyalty rewards program perspective, thinking about look at what Amex has done. Look at what Chase Sapphire has done. Look at Delta Sky Miles, where being a part of that opens up all these other doors based on the relationships and based on the partnerships that someone that someone can create in that role. And we are uniquely situated in Web3 to really create a ton of value for our holders. And so one thing we've always really stressed is that the Now Network will be built over time, not overnight, right? We're going to take the time to build it right. That's always been our MO. And I feel really fortunate that we have a great community of holders who are rocking with us, who are, giving us the time to cook, as they say. And we have some really exciting things in the works.
This is really fascinating because I'm part of the Moonbirds community, and I have 7 Moonbirds, and they developed a DAO that basically decides every couple of months whether people in the community, whether their projects should be funded or not. And the way that they do it is they have like 5 or 6 of them. They have a voting period. You can go in, and depending on how many Moonbirds you have X number of votes that you can apply for or against a particular project. And then the ones that get, overwhelming majority approval, obviously get up for, I don't know exactly how it works, but presumably they still have to go through probably some sort of assurance check, but those are the ones that get funded. And it's kind of fascinating to think, in your model, it sounds like, if you are part of the NFT community, I'm just trying to throw these out there for people to ideate how they could do something like this, you would get some sort of, in this case, it's points, not a vote, right? But are you using the 2,750 NFTs to somehow make decisions on who should be part of this up next thing, or like help people wrap their head around like how this could actually work,
Yeah. So we're employing something that's called progressive decentralization. And so like one of the things that's important is like, look, like ultimately NFT Now needs to have, we have certain standards of editorial integrity, the newsroom, ethics policy, et cetera. Obviously, we're not going to completely decentralize our entire editorial operations and put that at the whim of like,
holders, yeah.
Right, popular vote, et cetera. But what we are doing is progressively decentralizing different series. And so next up is our first one. And so that one, I'll give you as a case study example. We actually did something at the end of 2021. We did something that very few media companies do in Web2, which is we asked our community, like, hey, like, what could we be doing better? What could we be doing differently? And resoundingly, what we heard was, you guys do a great job of supporting artists, but it feels like it's largely established artists. How do rising artists get love too? How do they get on NFT Now? And we were like, we hear you loud and clear. So we launched Next Up, and Next Up has been amazing. Like if you go to the first one on January, it was in January 2022. It's like 22 ones to watch, and it's become a monthly series. And now it's a weekly series where we spotlight an artist. If you look at the initial list, it's crazy. It's like Drift, Diana Sinclair, Alpha Centauri Kid, like all these artists that you're like, those aren't rising artists, but they were back then, right? There's like no misses, and so it's been an incredibly important platform to help support artists. But ultimately, I think one thing that's really important is like to understand is we didn't get into Web3 to like become the new gatekeepers. That's not what this is about, right? Like what excites me about Web3 is the opportunity to bypass these centralized platforms and these like established hierarchies and gatekeepers that have long dictated industries, from the galleries and major auction houses in art to the major labels in music, etc. And so
to
like
the New York Times bestseller list, for
there you
example.
go. Yeah. Publishing is a whole nother side, And so for us, like right now, even though I think we've done a lot of good with Next Up, I recognize that the process is still very centralized, right? It's myself and our editors and writers coming together, sharing like a list of artists that we think are doing great things in the space, ultimately deciding who to support and then doing it. And you know what? Like, it should be more open. It should be more decentralized. It should be empowering the community to have a say in that. And so that's the first one we're going to do it with. And there's definitely ideas to bring that to other areas as well. But Next Up's going to be the first one. And I think it's going to be really special too, because one thing that's been really critical with NFT Now is like our mission, as I said, has always been empower the creators of culture, right? And so like uplifting artistry is like so central to who we are. And so being able to share in that with our community, being able to empower them to have a say in that, I think is really exciting. We also like when we did the NFT 100, we launched it the next month after the launch of the Now Pass, and we allowed Now Pass holders to submit nominations. In fact, it was only Now Pass holders. Last year, the nominations were open to the public. This year, it was just Now Pass holders. And so that was another way of like really empowering our community to have a say. Ultimately, the decision for the NFT 100 still rested with our editorial team and all that, because we have certain standards we have to uphold. But I can tell you that those nominations definitely made a difference. And every single nomination got a look. Like we looked and saw every single one, and so it's an amazing way to really empower our community to be able to step up and have a say. So while like it's not like we're planning to transition NFT Now into a DAO. But through progressive decentralization, we can really start to empower our community to have a say, and also align incentives for them to participate in areas that like just weren't really possible in the previous paradigm, right? Like if you go and look at like most Web2 media companies, like their social feeds, everything they do is like a very one-way street. It's just like from them to your eyeballs, because ultimately what they're really trying to do is juice the most page views out of you. They're trying to get you to click on the most things. It's like, and I know this because I've been in Web2 media. Like I've seen it. I know what goes, I know the conversations that are happening behind the scenes. I know the KPIs and the OKRs and the metrics that are driving that. And that's the thing too, is one thing we recognize is that, this change for tokenized media is not going to come from within. It's not going to come in from within the legacy media industry. The legacy media industry is just trying to stay afloat right now amid like declining traffics, around the rise of AI, along all of these. It's going to have to be tech from the outside. It's going to have to be. And, we're going to be that solution. We're pioneering that for them. And what we really want to do is we want to make it really clear. When I say like Web2 media is broken, I don't mean like that Web2 publishers or media companies are like the enemy or anything like that. We need those publishers to understand that there's a better way, and that they can then choose to embrace a better media model that I feel actually encourages and incentivizes more the deeper relationships that we actually want to see at society at large, right? Like I actually feel that, the Web2 media model has led to a sort of desensitization, alienation, these echo chambers, this very like PvP mentality, the zero sum game around the attention economy and the like. And I think we have an opportunity to get out of this, like these perverse like incentive loops, and do something different. And so I'm really excited about where this technology is going. And one thing to also say is like, I would be lying if I told you, Michael, that we had it all figured out. You know what I mean? Like anybody who's tackling a really big issue or a real problem and says that they do, like watch out. Because the thing is, in this space, things move really quickly. Technology adapts and evolves quickly. Like, something could get developed overnight that may change how we're thinking about tackling tokenized media. And we embrace that. You have to be flexible. You have to be nimble. You have to be able to adapt to changes. That's why, like, for example, with the rise of AI, we adapted AI into our workflow, into our editorial workflow.
Yeah, tell me more about that, because I'm very curious about that.
We were one of the first media companies to do it. And I think we were the only, if not one of the only, to be super transparent about it. Like there are a lot of media companies who are being a little shady behind the scenes, like all that. A lot of them have been called out before. We were super straight up and transparent with our community. We said, hey, this is our first AI powered news article. This is our first AI powered editorial, like the first AI powered listicle.
How are you using it? I'm very curious, because obviously our company has embraced ChatGPT-4, mostly to help us summarize transcripts and stuff like that, or to write, emails. But I'm curious about how you're using it.
Yeah, I trained a model that can take a press release into an original article that is in no way plagiarized and does justice to it. Like in a matter of seconds. That took a long time. That took time to train, and of course, it still takes a human eye, an editor, to go over and make sure that it fits the right format, that there's nothing that got introduced that's not correct, etc. But it can take the time. It can decrease the time that it takes to get an article like that from assignment to publication very significantly. Like we've been able to do it in like less than 15 minutes, start to finish.
Wow. So how does that, let's take like a Zuki, right? Like, did you guys use it during some of the news going on with the Zuki, like elementals and all that stuff?
So,
or any other example, like does it allow you to kind of get a leg up on some of the alternative media companies that are also covering this, because you're first to market?
I think it does to a degree. I also think that for a lot of the things that are happening in real time, like things that are playing out in real time, where like there's not a lot of necessarily like source materials that already exist, or an authoritative one. We don't necessarily use it like as much, or lean on as much for those. I think where it really helps is where it's like, you either have like some really authoritative source material, or it's like you have a lot of different sources that you can draw from. And for us, it's like what I think about is like live breaking news coverage, things like that. Like that's all that, like I still think we like that needs to be like led and driven by a human. What we always say is this: the way that we think about leveraging AI into our editorial workflow is we can automate the more rote and routine things that are time consuming that we just have to do sometimes to enable humans to focus on the things that only humans can do. So for example, like nobody in journalism is going to tell you they like writing a news article based on a press release. Like anybody who's telling you that is like, is just putting a brave face on it. No one likes doing that. It's tedious. It's whatever. It's, boom to boom. But sometimes it needs to be done. We automate that, take that down to 15 minutes. Now that human has more time to write a feature, write an analysis, be on top of a breaking news story, do original reporting, all those things. And that's actually why our staff has really embraced the AI and editorial, because we made it really clear that this is not about replacing humans. It's about replacing the things that humans don't want to do. So
It's
that
about improving them, really, right?
Exactly. We call it augmented intelligence in terms.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Matt, thank you, first of all, for sharing your vision and all your insights. There's going to be people listening right now that are interested in discovering where to find out more about your company, NFT Now, and also possibly connecting with you on the socials. So where do you want to send everybody if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so you can go straight to our website, nftnow.com. That's the source of truth right there for NFT Now. You can also follow NFT Now at NFT Now on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram Threads. All of the above. And if you're interested in learning more about the Now Pass and the Now Network, you can go to nowpass.xyz. And the Twitter account is at the Now Pass there.
At the Now Pass.
Yeah, the handle is the Now Pass. Yeah,
okay, cool.
So you get a little @ sign. So that's that's super exciting. Obviously, if you're interested in joining the community, you can pick up a Now Pass on at OpenSea or wherever you go in the marketplace side. Just be sure that you're going to the correct one. It's verified on OpenSea, and if you go to the Now Pass Twitter, which is also verified with the little NFT Now affiliate side badge. You can see all the official links there. And then for myself, you can find me on most of the Web2 platforms at Matt Medved. And for most of the Web3 ones, I was able to get at Medved. So, would be happy to connect, and would really encourage people, if you're interested, pop on by the NFT Now page. You can pop into our Discord. You'll see it's linked in the Twitter bio, discord.gg/NFT Now. You can also sign up for our newsletter at nftnow.com/newsletter. Free weekly. We distill everything happening in the space into actionable insights. The best way to keep on top of what we're doing. So there's no shortage of ways to connect. I look forward to connecting with anyone who found this interesting and inspiring, because to us it's just really clear, the future of media is tokenized.
Matt Medved, co-founder of NFT Now. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.